Gülce Saman'a işaret ver. Ben öyle gireyim. Say. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Everybody welcome again. So, first of all, you are welcome. I am Emrah, and the founder and CEO of the Sorwe here. So, actually, I was in your shoes in multinational companies for many years, actually. So, I guess no one knows better than me which type of heroism you accomplished for your organization in past a few years, actually. It was really difficult times, and everything was changing in the whole world. So, as you know, according to Gallup and PwC reports, the employee engagement is decreasing everywhere, especially in the last 10 years. At the same time, we are overcoming the deepest economic crisis in the last 80 years currently. These are really very difficult times, and we have to be hero for our organization, actually, to prepare our organization for the future. It is really everything. We need new approaches for people management and productivity and working places again and again. So I'm talking about the bad things, but I don't want to seem like someone who just talk about the bad disaster scenarios here. Actually, I have a good news for you today. So I am quite optimistic person, and I am all time thinking that everything will get better. Depend on the crisis, depend on the changes in the world, actually make everything for a better world in the future. So low engagement level didn't happen all at once, actually. So in my professional career, I saw that the current approaches didn't work. We needed to have new approach, new vision, prepare workplaces for the future. So this is where Sorwe's story began, actually. A holistic people management approach was needed. We all want to experience elements on our daily life. Actually, in everywhere, even in our work life, actually, we need to have different type of experience at the moment. As Sorwe, we are holding a mission to create a good experience in the workplace environment, because we believe in that. The good experience is creating the engagement naturally, and the performance is starting to rise itself. We believe in human-centric and digital employee experience design. Sorwe is offering holistic and digital employee experience to make your people's life easier. Not only your employees, actually. We would like to make life easier for your people heroes in the organizations. Actually, the reason we are organizing this event second time to share the latest employee experience trends and best practices as our mission to HR community. We are absorbed across 7 different geographies from our clients. It was needed to talk about how to transform employee experience. We wanted to bring the current challenge under same umbrella together with you. I am sure our speakers today will broaden our perspective on how they implement the strategies in their organizations. I want to leave the floor to them without speaking further. Thank you very much again for your time today. It is very nice to be all together. Thank you.
Thanks, Emrah. Hi there, everyone. So I'm Martin Williams. I'm the head of the UK here at Sorwe. You've probably all had a barrage of emails from myself inviting you. So first off, thanks for coming, turning up. So today we've got 4 speakers, starting off with Ben Witter. Some of you may have come across him in the HR world. He's the founder and CEO of Hex Organisation. He's recognised by Thinkers 50 as one of the world's leading management thinkers, and also recognised by UK HR magazine. So that first, I'll pass over to Ben, who's going to be discussing where is the employee experience heading. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Is this on? Hello. You can play Friday, can't you? Hello, people online. Very, very good. Okay, it's nice to see you. Are you doing okay? Yes. Okay. It's tough out there, isn't it? It's getting tougher. You know, we've heard from some of the great issues that we're facing as HR practitioners. How many people in the room work in HR? Pretty much, yeah, a lot of people here. How many people love working in HR? Okay, I know my audience now. That was a very positive response. So I'm here to talk about the future of HR and where employee experience is heading, and why HR is such an amazing opportunity to become that real business critical role wherever you may be. Whether you're at mid-career, early career, or you're a senior executive. I'm going to show you the difference employee experience can make to you if you apply it consistently in your business. Now, it's been quite a journey to get here. Lots of research for the last 10 years on employee experience, different iterations coming through, different case studies that grow our thinking and show us different ways of connecting with our workers. It's been a fascinating field, and it's started to break into the mainstream management thinking now, which is very good. It's interesting, the recognition we're now getting for employee experience. You know, we couldn't have imagined the scale and depth of the recognition that is being focused on the employee experience. And it's been accelerated by the pandemic. All the different challenges that we faced over the last 2 years have literally reshaped our organizations. Have you felt that yourselves? I'll ask you a question in a moment because this is very personal. And it's getting more personal for employees and organizations as they start to scale and think about employee experience. Now, I tend to work with some of the larger organizations in the world and help them to develop their global employee experience strategies. So across many thousands of employees, which is very difficult, but those apply to any business of any size. And I'll share some of the thinking behind that as we go through. I'm not going to talk too much. If you do have any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or come and talk to me at the break. I'm going to be staying here for coffee and tea and cake. So I'll be here for a little while. And you do have a copy of my book in front of you as well, which, if you're in HR, is going to be an interesting read for you because I'm presenting a very different version of HR, but it's a positive one. And that's the way I'm approaching this topic. It's not that I'm anti-HR. I started my career in HR, master's in HR, CIPD member for 15 plus years, and good friends with Peter Cheese. Hi, Peter. He's a CEO of the CIPD. If you do have any questions, please come and ask me. So what's happening with employee experience right now is that it's delivering results. You know, more and more research is coming out to say employee experience is delivering great employee engagement outcomes, but also great business outcomes. It's delivering great leadership outcomes. So if you transform your people management practices into more employee-centered, human-centered things, then it delivers immediate, tangible returns. Some great research from MIT Sloan and others that have said employee experience, when you're doing it in a very committed way, you're going to increase your profitability, your productivity, your innovation, and your customer satisfaction. So it's an approach that really does break through, and it connects really strongly with customer experience. So if you're talking to your business managers, your business leaders, you're talking about HR stuff, sometimes they glaze over. Is that right? Sometimes it's really tough to get funding. If you talk to them more about the customer experience and how the employee experience connects to it, well, you get a different return from that conversation. But it's been all changed these last 2 years. Me personally, bought a forest in Snowdonia, getting back to nature, kind of helping regenerate some woodland. The last 2 years have really challenged us to think about what is important in our human experience. Is there anything you've changed over the last 2 years about your human experience? And do you think it's impacted your work life? I bet there's been a lot of change, to be honest, because 1 in 4 people have identified an intention to quit their job. 1 in 4 people are moving away from cities, apparently, and moving in, outside of urban areas into the countryside, perhaps. So there's been a great level of change within that human experience, which is affecting the employee experience. People, do you want to commute into London every day? There's some people go, no! I don't blame you, to be honest. But that's an expected part of a 9-to-5 work life, and you're going to have to do it. Or not, because we have hybrid work models. We have flexible work from anywhere processes these days. So what was normal before the pandemic is not normal now. If we're continuing to force people into things that they don't like, they don't help productivity, then we need to question them. So that's the reason for this change. Lots of change happening at a pace that is hard to keep up with. Once we're meeting the expectations of yesterday and today, we're already behind the expectations of tomorrow. It's moving that fast. Technology is pushing us forward at a rate that is relatively unprecedented. Since, the horse and cart to the car was quite a change. But now we're moving to new ways of working, new configurations of work, and new pressures on us to change the way we live as well. Environmental concerns, social justice issues, all of that comes into the employee experience. Would you agree? If there's an issue in society, does that affect your employees? Absolutely. Does it affect you if there's an issue that's going unanswered with your employer? Lots of strong head nods there. So you can see if we have more traditional HR practices, if they're slow, if they're bureaucratic, if they're organization-centered, you could see that we're going to be constantly on the back foot in a reactive, fearful, cautious state. Am I describing your current organization? Don't answer that. Put the camera away. No, I'm joking. It's okay, we can be friendly here, but it is being filmed. It's a serious situation, and it needs some serious solutions. It's serious because we're starting to question the very roles that people have in life. We're starting to find out more about what motivates people, more about what gets the best out of people. And we're starting to explore all the roles that we've had through the pandemic. And it's been intensified. Has anyone been caring for someone through the pandemic? Has anyone been affected by someone going through a period of ill health? Has anyone had any parental responsibilities through the pandemic? Imagine if your employer was not supportive of those personal situations. Would you check out? Would you quit? Although I don't like that term very much. You would probably do something, and it starts with that switch in the mind that says, this employer does not care about me, so why should I care about this employer? So in order to unlock our best performance, we need to tap into all of these roles right here, right now, from today. It would have been better from yesterday. Our ability to explore ourselves as human beings. How many people truly know and understand themselves in this world? Not many. If we give people time to explore themselves, they'll make better choices, better decisions, and they'll deliver better outcomes in life and at work. If we enable people to give their best contribution and we take away all this bureaucratic nonsense and some of the hoops that people have to jump through, or some of the restrictions, or some of the toxic leadership around them, it'll enable them to deliver a better contribution. If we enable people to play their full role in life as a citizen, getting involved in interests and activities that resonate with them, it'll make them a more powerful employee, and actually it'll represent your brand in a very powerful way as well. Caring responsibilities. Again, we've never had this focus on organizations before where we're saying caring is a corporate priority. Because I think it is now. Some of the clients we work with, Ford, for example, through the pandemic, they put in such detailed effort, time, commitment, and care in that return to work experience for their manufacturing employees. It was unbelievable. They created and designed a welcome experience that was safe, secure, and lowered anxiety and stress for their frontline workers. What a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. They didn't have to do it. but it worked, and employees have reported a great increase in pride at that employer. But they never had to do that. They could have just said, back to work, get back on the line and do your job. The difference between employee experience and anything else is remarkable, and it's because of things like that. So you can start to see the potential when we look at performance and enabling that performance and helping people to architect their own human experience within the context of the organization. This is why I'm obsessed with employee experience, and this is why it makes a profound difference, because it's focused on the moments that matter, but forget that. It's focused on the moments that really matter. It's the time when you need that support, trust, and care from your employer. That's the moment that breaks through. That's the moment that creates engagement over the long term. So that's what we have to design around. That's what we have to engineer in a very intentional way. And that's what employee experience gives us. Just wanted to mention very quickly one of the models that we kind of first developed to explain employee experience. And I suppose this indicates where we're going to, where we've been in the past. It's all about the truth, purpose, mission, and values. It's about connecting people to that within themselves, but also the organization. How many organizations have you worked in that don't really believe in their values? They say they do. I like the eyebrow movement now. They look very good on paper. They look very good, but if they're not lived and not designed into the organization, then it doesn't matter. We know from Harvard, a massive million-strong study, purpose, when installed into the business, it uplifts everything. Meaning of work, productivity, performance, the whole kit and caboodle, a lot. But it doesn't stand alone. It stands side by side with a great mission and a great set of values. We are still here with employee experience, trying to install these values, this great mission and the purpose into the everyday experience of work. And we're doing that through great commitment to human centricity. We're doing that to a great commitment to leadership, but not any type of leadership, not some abstract strategic leadership stuff. This is human-centered leadership. Because if you had the best facilities, if you had a pool table like we have over there, I fancy a game of that today, to be honest. Free food, free drinks, all that doesn't matter if you have a very poor leader. If you have a poor leader, all that makes no sense. It doesn't make a difference. So we have to take care of leadership. We have to look at the structure around HR and support services if we're going to design an end-to-end experience that delivers tangible results. So again, better collaboration between IT, estates, marketing, HR, communications. All of those roles now need to work side by side as best friends. HR does not operate in isolation. HR does not own the employee experience. The business does. But that makes it easier for us as HR practitioners because the business has to take full accountability for employee experience performance, not blame HR when it goes wrong. Or just give HR credit when it goes right, because that's the other side of the coin. Same thing with technology. Again, very careful around how we install technology into the business, not being technology-led, but technology-enabled. So great platforms are around the employee experience now, adding massive value. But again, it makes sense if it's human-centered, if it makes things more effortless, more seamless. If it makes things more complicated, then why are we doing it? So these are big questions that we're still asking ourselves now. The workplace has never been a building. It's the spaces and places that enable our best work. And that remains the same to this day. So again, we're questioning the configuration of work, 4-day working weeks, work from anywhere, work as a digital nomad. If you're a large portion of the contingent workforce now, so many different ways to engage with an employer. So again, that's what the holistic employee experience will start to look at and design around. And then the final thing is community. I don't know if I've ever felt a sense of belonging to a corporation. I felt a sense of belonging to my team and to the community around me, but maybe not this abstract entity. Maybe it's something deeper. So can we design more meaning into the organization, create more positive relationships? So it's all under review. We've got to get ahead with this. This is what's real in terms of 22 progress. for this year, we're still focused on creating these great employee experiences and looking at the organization more holistically. And again, this will continue into the future as we start to connect up all the services that make a difference and serve the employee experience. And again, it comes down to three things, as you'll see in the book. You've all got a copy on there. People, planet, and performance. These three pillars are going to be the things that really help us accelerate and connect our people in ways that we haven't connected them before. So, lots to consider, lots going on, lots of things to think about. And again, we're going to give you the slides to take away. You'll all get a copy of this. But we're starting to hone in on the things that really do help us achieve this in practice. So a greater focus on discovering the organization with great people analytics, with great technology. We're looking at disrupting the organization where and when we can. This is a lot of fun. Having a lot of fun playing around with new ideas, experimentation, challenging things that may have not been challenged before. So again, this is a lot of fun to go through this type of process. But then the big thing within this, I'm not going to cover all of it, but the big thing is differentiating yourself from everyone else, as opposed to doing a vanilla employee experience. Because there are things that really resonate about your brand and why people choose you. That's what needs to drive the employee experience forward. So again, as we go forward into the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to be more focused on differentiation. Why should talent choose you over another organization? What is unique and signature about your employee experience? Because again, there is, 3% employment or unemployment in this country? If you're not different to everyone else, then it's going to be difficult. But that's okay. But we'll need to design with more intention and deliver this across the employee experience, the way that we attract people. So a few things to think about. Again, I'll give you that to take away as a process to have a look at. But again, it's very exciting when we start to think about HR being a design partner, an experience architect. That's a different way of interacting with the business. Can you imagine going into a HR forum or meeting and saying, my only job is to improve your employee experience? It's a different conversation. You walk in, I'm here to help you live your best life and deliver your best work. Do you disagree with that? You're on board, aren't you? Yeah, you're going to be working for me after this, I think. It's funny, isn't it? And it's contagious. It's energetic. It feels great. When you start to talk with employees as co-producers, instead of just consulting them at the back end of some kind of project forum or meeting, instead of doing that, we can say, come and create this with us. Let's not worry about buying later down the track. Let's co-create something very special. So again, this is why we're all very excited about employee experience. And this is where it leads to, in that we create a different type of organization that is fit for human beings. Progress is built on purpose. It's driven by a mission. We're obsessed with those humans that work in our organizations or partner with us in some way. We're focused on the future, so delivering the expectations of tomorrow. We're driven by that experience, that everyday experience, making it better, making it more enjoyable, making it more inspired to help people deliver their best work. And finally, we're absolutely uncompromising on values. I was talking with the lady beforehand, Zoe. Hello. We had a great conversation about a human-centered CEO that would hold cheese nights for workers and employees. They do all the running and serving, and that's great leadership. Can't scale that? Well, yeah, you can. I know CEOs with many thousands of employees, they'll be running the welcome party for all the new acquisition staff. You can scale human-centered leadership across any function. You just have to apply it from within yourself and affect the people around you. So again, that's the great frontier of employee experience, human-centered leadership, enabling leaders to take more responsibility for employee experience instead of just going, it's a HR thing, go and see them. Or it's an employee experience thing, go and see the new employee experience director we've got. No. Co-creation is the foundation stone of exceptional employee experiences. So that's what I wanted to share with you, just a snippet of my work and research and where it's leading to, and how you can apply some of that in practice, and a few practical things that you can take away. But I suppose this kind of sums up where we are with employee experience right now, in that we're aware of this beautiful opportunity we've been given, but it's a talent we've just started to grasp. So today, I would encourage you to grasp all the lessons and the discussions with your peers and your colleagues, with me, if you feel value in talking to me, and explore this idea of employee experience, because it makes a massive fundamental difference to the way business gets done. Thank you very much. And this is very much to be continued as well, because my new book is available next year, and we'll be talking about employee experience strategy. So again, getting that strategy right. But final thing from me is very much, this is tough. We've never had these conditions to deal with as HR practitioners before. It's going to get worse. Employees are going to be looking at us for real human-centered leadership in the moments that really matter to them. But we need to enjoy the experience. We really need to enjoy it, because if we're in this business, it's a privilege to serve people. So enjoy it, make the most of it. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Thank you, Ben. I think you'll all agree, some great insights there from Ben. And as he said, you've all been left with a book by Ben, and he'd be signing some of those if you want them signed by a great man himself. So next up, I'd like to welcome Anastasia. So she's the VP of Baker Hughes. Previous to her role there, she was had multiple roles at General Electric and has worked internationally across the globe, and really focuses on high-performing teams. So without further ado, Anastasia, I'd like to welcome you up. Thank you. Cool.
For the video, okay. Got all prepped up. So good 20 minutes, yeah? Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Lovely to meet you all. Can you hear me okay? This is really strange. So my name is Anastasia Kuzmina, and I'm the HR leader for Baker Hughes. Baker Hughes is a huge organization. We've got about 56 people globally. We operate in about 120 countries. And I think everything that Ben talked about just now, I wish we can solve this nut. I wish we can crack this nut. I wish we can implement all of that, but we're not there. However, we are doing very intentional work around employee experience, because to what Ben was talking about, it is so important to differentiate. It is so important to think about the multiple different employees groups that you have in your organization, and what is the employee experience for them really. We with General Electric, with the oil and gas about 5 years ago, and I just discussed it with Kathy earlier. Change is the only constant. So there's change all around our two huge organizations. We're about $24 billion company. We had to integrate two different HR systems altogether back in 2017. So the first thing we decided to do is that we decided to implement Workday. How many people here know what Workday is or using it? Okay, so great employee record type of system. So for us, if you think about the digitizing some of the HR processes and services, this was the first thing that we decided to do as we merged two organizations together. So that was 2020 February, and guess what? COVID hit. And we felt that all our people leaders, we gave them great tool to operate in, and they're all going to be using it, and they're all going to be creating this great employee experience with their employees. Guess what? Our enablement and the whole change management piece around this probably didn't work the way we really wanted it to do. However, we decided to be intentional about it. And what Ben was talking about, structure, the organizational structure of the team, we decided to realign and change our HR model, and we decided to change the approach on how we operate. So we re-looked at our HR model, and we started thinking that we need to have a dedicated team that we called Human Capital and Technology. So in about May timeframe, just around COVID times, when it was hard, when it was difficult, we decided to launch the new organization of our Human Capital and Technology. technology, their mission in life was to really look at the different processes that exist in the organization. How do we optimize them? How do we take the right technology that can help us be better, be more nimble, be more flexible, be more agile? And again, there was a huge change. It was a change for HR, where we basically had to take out, all of us were working from home. So on one side, it was really positive that we were able to work through those challenges. On the other side, people are so used to having their person at the end of the hallway that they can actually talk to on all the HR matters. We actually implemented the self-service mechanism of what we called My HR, where people can actually go in and log, any type of HR question, HR query, and then there will be a solutions team behind the scenes that would be able to address any of those challenges. In the first year, we had about 20,000 tickets that were raised. So huge volume. If we look at this, the way how this organization is working 2 years later, we've got 450,000 tickets, that are launched through the system. So the way how we are looking at the processes, firstly, we really have to think about what the employee experience really is. And the way we look at it, we look at the different persona groups. Employee experience for a manager that actually need to lead the team of the employee, and one thing as to what he or she needs to do, and then what his team needs to deliver or her team needs to deliver. Then there is the employee themselves of the different groups as well. And then there is, a role of HR in this as well. So you really have to think through as to what are the differences of this employee experience, and how do we really need to align our processes, linked to that, based on the outcome that we are trying to deliver. And we know that we've got some great people leaders, call them. We kind of walked away from the concept of manager, because we're not there to manage somebody's performance, but we are there to lead the employees. So that's why, we really start thinking as to how do we enable our people leaders to be the best people leaders? Because it's not HR, to what Ben was talking about. We can design the most amazing experience for people. But if the manager doesn't talk to them, if the people leader is not present, if the people leader is not talking about their career development, if they're not there to coach and mentor them and engage with them, the employee experience is not there really. And probably in some senior level groups, that connection with the people leader was most important. Regardless of how well the onboarding system works and how well the first orientation session worked, this was important, but it was not as important as the actual time spent with an actual people leader. So that's why we really had to think through the different groups. And again, in a company like ours, where you have 56,000 employees in 120 countries, where you've got manufacturing folks, where you've got engineering team, where you've got process team, where you've got HR team, you've got sales team. All of them want really different employee experience to an extent, right? So that's why designing your systems and designing your processes based on the outcomes what you want to receive, focusing on certain persona groups, I think this is a really great thing. Now, secondly, also the challenge that we were faced with is that wouldn't that be great to have a one-stop shop that can combine everything that from the moment you start in the company, so that would be your onboarding, that would be your orientation, that would be your first connection with your team, that would be your network of buddies, that would be the way how you can order your computer, that would be the way how you order your laptop, that would be the way how you order all the different systems. Wouldn't be that great to have it all in one system? Well, unfortunately, we're not there. So we still have like a one kind of HR type of portal where we're trying to get people to, and then there's a different digital request for a phone and a different request for a computer and a different career development side and a different everything, right? So that's why, again, the person that first comes to the company, they come the first day and they're already delinquent on different integrity sessions that they need to do, and they're already delinquent on some other training requirements, and they're just completely overwhelmed. So I think, this said, kind of how do you really design this one-stop shop for a person to actually go into and go to the whole information and the suite of applications where you can really make the life easy to understand. And I'm sure a lot of people in the audience use Uber, right? and all of us order from Amazon. I know what to do. And why do we do this? It's easy. It's like a few clicks and it's get delivered the next day. Sometimes you forget that you ordered it. It arrives at the doorstep. And what I actually talked to somebody who was part of our digital technology team, at times we actually designed a system that would be good for us to actually look at our internal metrics. How many tickets were raised? What kind of processes were those tickets about? Kind of what people like, what people don't like. And actually, when you're on the other side going into that as a customer, even myself, I have to go into this tool, and there's several clicks that you actually have to do, and sometimes you still don't do it right. So how hard it would be for a people leader to actually go into this portal and to actually log this request and to actually get the right data, they receive the right data. So it's really complex. So again, when you're designing certain processes, you really have to think through it from the customer perspective. So who's your customer? Who's your people leader? Who's your employee that is going to raise this ticket? How easy it is to order Uber and how easy it is to order Amazon, something that you're buying there, right? How could we do this? Sometimes in HR, we like to overcomplicate things. So that's something for us to think about, really. And then I think another most important piece is kind of how do we do the analytics around the employee experience? And again, maybe Sorwe has got an answer for that. Maybe Ben can share that as well. I think employee experience is just such a different thing, because an experience is a different thing for everybody. It's so different. I live in West London. Today I kind of traveled on the tube coming into St. Pancras, so many busy people. I'm like, oh, this is great. I usually go to Hammersmith. It's just much closer. It's slightly different. It's an experience for me to be going there. Somebody else who may be kind of doing the journey, oh my God, I need to go on a tube again. Oh my God, there's just so many people. There's just street names. I haven't been here. There's all this construction and everything happening. Not a good experience, really, right? Person kind of had to get out of their comfort zone, go in there. So to be able to understand what this experience really is, we really need to talk to our people and we really need to see as to what's in it for them. But to Ben's point is to kind of how do we have the workforce that is connected to the mission of the company, to the vision of the company. We are oil field services company. We are, we're in the equipment business, we're in the service business, we're in the energy technology business. We deliver energy to the world, and we want to do it the most sustainable way for our people and for our planet and for our customers. And that's why we focus on our values. Values are so key to what any organization does. Our key values are grow, lead, collaborate, and care. And exactly like Ben was saying, during COVID times, the care was just coming through everywhere. We have established employee resource groups that were actually the point for people to connect to, the point to within the company where some of the managers were dealing with their own stress, but those employee resource groups came to the forefront and were helping people deal with different challenges. And guess what? We got lots of information to say that this was the most incredible time and this was the greatest employee experience people had. So who would have thought that during that time, that was the most critical piece versus actually, connecting necessarily to the manager, etc. So I think, again, in the world of change that we live through, in the world of, everything that's happening around us, it's just kind of how do you continue to remain agile? How do you continue to remain flexible? How do you continue to listen to people as to what's important for them? Versus us back in HR trying to design the processes and the system that we think is going to work for them. How do we walk away from being perfect? How do we walk away from having one size fits all? Because it doesn't. It really doesn't. But at the same time, and I like what Ben said, progress, right? So kind of how do you change? How do you try some things, new things? How do you apply the concept of minimum viable product? Because if you test it for a small group of people of the same demographics, and if it works for them, you might then scale it up versus necessarily immediately trying to scale it up to the big size of the business. That might not work. So again, kind of how do you do this in a practice mode to an extent, again, provided you can do that. There's always budget involved. I think, again, none of the experience could be done without the budget. There's always budget, there's always politics of the different functions. They want to have it this way, other function want to have it this way, the third function want to have it that way. So again, employee experience is not just HR piece. It's a really a whole holistic approach. It's a business piece as well. The more your chief operating officer or your CEO can talk about the employee experience, the better that is. Sometimes at the top, it's one employee experience. Sometimes at the different levels, it's a different experience as well, right? So kind of how do you design this holistic structure and system around it, and then look at the people processes as well. The last thing I say is that, regarding the analytics, so we try to evaluate experience through the HR processes, particularly through surveys. And guess what? We got 7% response on the surveys only. People don't like surveys. How many surveys do we receive in a day? Did you like this Uber ride? Did you like this Amazon delivery? Did you like, kind of your call? I mean, it's just overwhelming. And we were like 8%. Oh my God, people don't want to tell us how they really feel. But actually, if you look at the stats, this survey response is about 10-15% usually only. So we're like, oh, we're 8%, so it's kind of actually not that good, not that bad. But then we looked at the details that we get in the survey, and again, they were not really that helpful. So we decided we're going to do some surveys on some of the key processes that we're going to be working. We're working with Medallia on this one, and at the same time, we're going to be doing just the employee focus groups, where we're going to be very specific about the, how the employees enjoyed the experience or didn't enjoy the experience, enjoy the process that we launched, didn't enjoy the process that they launched, etc. So it's still kind of all in the trial period. So we are trying new things. We are trying to see what works, what doesn't work. We are trying to integrate as much as we can with Workday, so that we have Workday. We're trying to get our learning and development platform, SumTotal, talk to Workday as well. We are trying to ensure our competency management system, Kahuna, is connected with Workday as well. So, and any type of additional instances we are trying to add, the more they're holistically connected, I think, the better it would be, for the company as well. So now my 20 minutes is off, I think. I'm here as well to answer any questions. As I said, for a big global company that is like a big ship, you kind of sometimes think about this ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, which is 400 meters long, and it's so hard for it to kind of get to navigate, when you're operating in a huge corporation, which is an American company going global. There's so many different dimensions that you always have to take into the consideration, and you have to give yourself a piece that you're never going to be perfect. It has to be always focused on the continuous improvement. It has to be over perfection, and it has to be kind of the constant, iteration, constant growth, the constant change. But the more you talk to your people to see what actually matters to them, while knowing that one size is not going to fit all, I think, you're going to be successful in your journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. These were great experiences for us, actually. You identified the meaning of employee experience very well. So we realized that how complex processes we are managing at the moment in our organizations. And if we think in the box, actually, we recognize that how it is difficult to design an employee experience for different kind of organizations. So really very well identifications we heard here. So we have it's a break at the moment, but if you have any questions to our speakers, maybe we can answer here, or we can go to break, and then we will meet in here again as soon as possible.
Hi everyone. So next up we've got Tom Probert, the director of Been There Done That. So Been There Done That are actually a client of ours at Sorwe, and Tom will explain kind of how he's used our platform to drive employee engagement and improve the employee experience. Tom's filling in for Nicky, so he couldn't make it today, but I'll pass it to Tom. Do your thing.
Yeah, cheers, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey guys. I'm going to kind of talk from a slightly different point of view here. And embarrassingly, I have to say I've got no experience in HR, and we also don't have an HR department, so forgive me for any abusive language or whatever. But hopefully this will be relevant, because I think our business model is all about displaced workforce. And we've been doing this for probably 5 or 6 years now. And obviously this is a super relevant topic for all of you at the moment. I'm going to talk to you about 3 things. I'm going to talk to you about our model at Been There Done That, so you can understand how our business operates, the challenges we face with building culture, and particularly building culture inside out, and then what strategies have we put in place to try and overcome these challenges. First thing to say, and I think this is relevant and obvious for all of you probably, but it's black swan events like COVID that changed consumer behavior, people's behavior forever. And increasingly people are returning to the office, and the perception of what culture means in office is changing. And there's something I saw last week saying 20% of all people in the US feel disconnected from their company culture. So this is super important, obviously, and I think the whole area of displaced workforce, as I say, is going to be something that's increasingly relevant for everybody. Let me talk to you about Been There Done That. So this picture here is Raphael's School of Athens, and I think this sums up what our business does. And this picture at the time was about the world's best thinkers. And our mission as a business is to provide brands access to the world's best thinkers. And we have a community of about 500 people around the world who are chief strategy officers, chief creative officers, innovation experts, experienced strategy specialists. And we provide businesses and brands access to these experts at speed. All of the experts in our network are based on a tech platform, based on areas of expertise, the brands they've worked on, passion projects, specialism, and we use the technology to help define the right expert for the right problem, basically. There are some other important fundamental principles with how we operate our business. It's all about speed. Everything we do is in 1-week sprints. So again, building a culture with a broader network at speed is quite a difficult thing for us to try and achieve. This hopefully will give you a sense. I just want to talk a little bit about some of the risks that a model like our business faces, and then I'll talk to you about some of the things that we've put in place. So we have a network of 500 people across 27 different markets. All of these people are freelancers. And they come to us. We go to them only when we have a specific brief or a specific problem for them to solve. And then at the core of our business, we have an office in the UK and an office in the US, roughly about 15 people. And I think the big challenge here is how you create a community, not a network. And the big risk for us as a business is that we just create a network and people feel a sense of place and they don't feel a sense of desire and passion basically for interacting with our company. So it's a big challenge and it's a really important one for us that we create a sense of community. This also gives you a sense of the complexity of how our model operates. So anytime we deal with a client, there are 3 cogs at play. You've got the central team, of which I'm a part, and our job is to help identify the problems that our clients have got. And we work with a lot of the biggest companies in the world across multiple sectors, helping them identify their pain points. We then have a smaller community of people we call problem definers, whose job it is to help these businesses identify what the problem is they're trying to solve. And then once we've done that, we then brief that out to the community. So you've got 3 different cogs all playing at the same time. So trying to get a sense of harmony and seamlessness, all interacting with the client at the same time is really important, is really difficult. And I think culture is a crucial part, obviously, of making sure that everyone is heading in the right direction. And the final one, a challenge that we're obviously trying to overcome is the tools. So in a network-based, community-based model like ours, people communicate through all of these channels that you'll be familiar with: Zoom, WhatsApp, Slack, G Drive. We also have a tech platform which our community members will operate into. But it's the risk is it's very transactional, because if you're not careful, all you're doing with people is communicating on business, and there isn't really space for people to talk more culturally and to be able to open and just have normal conversations that you might have at the water cooler, for example. So this is another challenge that we're trying to overcome. So let me talk to you about what it is that we've tried to do and put in place to define our culture as a business. And again, this is less, this is not specifically from an HR point of view, but these are all things that we try and put in place to ensure that we're creating a sense of community, not just a sense of network. And there are 5 things I'm going to talk to you about. The first one is ideal conditions. So one of the key principles of our business that we've spent a huge amount of time over the last 5 or 6 years trying to put in place is how do we define what the ideal conditions are for our customers, our colleagues, and our community to thrive. And this is a key principle. It's part of our mission as a business. And the core principle behind all of this is what we call psychological safety. So the focus that we put as a business is how do we achieve psychological safety in an environment where people are working anywhere in the world, at any time, in any time zone. Psychological safety is the crucial focal point for our culture. This is just an example of some of the stuff that we put in place to do that. And we've talked about values, and I think, values is an obvious thing, but these other 2 areas I think are really interesting, which is how you start to use product and how you start to use process to create a sense of culture and unity in your business. So we codify absolutely everything we do. We codify every process we create. We codify the gaps that we create in the process for people to come together. We codify the customer experience that a community member has if they interact with the platform. All of this is done to create psychological safety, to create a sense of belonging, and to help them feel part of the network that they are interacting with. So all of the user design, all of the product design is focused around creating psychological safety. The second thing that we focus a lot on is cognitive diversity. Again, the biggest risk here would be that you have 500 people all operating on their own in a little echo chamber. But really, the thing that powers our work and that powers our business and that powers the output we give to our clients is about providing a diverse perspective of opinions on a problem. So cognitive diversity, again, I think is a really important piece. And there's a book here by a guy called Matthew Syed, who's a brilliant thinker, and he has a whole thesis about breakthrough innovation and about success for business is all about cognitive diversity. How do you bring different perspectives and different brains together to solve problems? And you can apply this to culture, you can apply this to anything, but bringing different perspectives is crucial. And there's a really interesting example in his book about 9/11, and in his thesis is the reason that 9/11 happened was because the CIA was full of white Caucasian males. And they were completely unable to understand the people that were attacking them and to understand the anger and the frustration and all of these parts that led to this happening because they didn't embrace cognitive diversity. So again, I think this is a really interesting principle for how we think about driving the culture and how we think about innovation in our business. There's a quote here, which you'll get the deck and you can have a read of it afterwards. But it's about strengthening institutions. It's about encouraging constructive dissent, and it's about harnessing this new thinking to free ourselves and to free the people in the organization. And again, I think it's a time when people in organizations can feel on their own, can feel hemmed in as a result of displaced working. This is a really powerful way to unite people and bring them together. Common language. Another thing that we've focused a lot on is, again, if you've got 500 people all operating on their own in different places, how do you create a sense of belonging? How do you create a sense of unity? And a key thing that we've worked on is, what is our point of view as a business? What do we believe in that's unique to us versus everybody else? And how does that become the cornerstone with which everybody interacts with? Again, our company's called Been There, Done That. We've got loads of the most experienced people in the world. They've all got their own learned behaviors of how to operate. So creating one point of view for the company has been really important. And that's what we call problem definition. So our belief as a business is a problem well defined is a problem half solved. And you can see this image here. This is all about, actually, if you can define the problem you're trying to solve, you can solve half of it, and you can create the frame, and it's a way to create breakthrough solutions. But again, I think this idea of having a common point of view. So we believe everything we do as a business starts with problem definition, whether it's internal, whether it's external. Whenever you interact with our business, you start by questioning, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And it gives people a focal point. It gives everyone, wherever they are, whoever they are, a start point with which they can interact with our business. We've created a framework which we use called Solve, which is all about helping you understand how to put a problem apart and reassemble it again. But again, having this framework, having this way of operating, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it doesn't matter what time zone you're in, you have a framework within which to operate and a framework within which to work. It gives people that psychological safety, and it gives people an ability to understand why they're in this business and what it believes in and stands for. Finger on the pulse. So one of the biggest challenges we've had is, again, how do we understand how people are feeling when everyone is displaced as a workforce and we're operating at speed? Everything is in 1 week sprints. Everything is high speed. A big risk is that you focus solely on delivery because you're working so fast. And we've been working with Sorwe on this, and it's been a big step change for us as a business, actually, is how we start to use data to empower cultural decision making. And I just want to show you this. This is an example with a survey we've just started doing. And we've analyzed across the business the different elements, so satisfaction, working climate, management, innovation, career, fees, etc. This view rapidly in a week helped us to understand where is it we need to be focusing as a company. And you can see here, basically, the yellow is the area where we realize that we need to be putting attention. And as a result of it, we've implemented 5 or 6 initiatives in the company now, specifically against these areas to help step change this. But I think data for us is becoming and has become a really, really important part of how we start to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of how people are feeling, because you don't have any of that pastoral element that you normally would have. You're not interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. I've been really, really surprised by how much of a difference this has made. And then the final thing has been creating a sense of belonging. Again, when you've got no home, how do you create a home? And again, I've been surprised by, we've adopted the Sorwe platform as our cultural home in the business. So where we have Slack, where we have WhatsApp, where we have Google Drive, all of these tools for dealing with work, we've created a separate platform which is specifically about people. It's about recognition, it's about reward, and it's about communicating only on these topics. If I'm honest, I was a bit skeptical at the beginning about whether or not people needed another platform in their lives. There's enough of that going on, but I've been really surprised actually with people's interaction, and it's made a big difference to our company to have a space where people can come together. And an example here is this functionality on Sorwe around kudos, where you can just give people a bit of kudos for stuff. The interaction rates have been really, really high, and And it's creating a place for us to be able to communicate on the things that just get lost in the traffic of everything else that's coming in email and Slack, etc. So I think having a platform where people can come together and where you can share information that's got nothing to do with the day-to-day business is making a big difference. So that's it. What are the sort of 5 takeouts for us as a company in terms of how we're building culture inside out? Creating psychological safety, embracing diversity, defining a common language, not forgetting to take the pulse of our organization on a regular basis, and also creating a sense of place that isn't just the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Yes, last but not least, we've got Cyprian here. Has anyone got any questions in the meantime while we go find them? I won't start that carrier review. Yes, of course, yes.
When you talk about people being all working remotely,
Yeah.
do they ever get to
Yeah, good question. So we create moments for people to come together, but the truth is 500 people across 27 markets. The answer is no. You know, we will create specific events. People who live in proximity to, in the UK, for example, will create events and get them together, but the truth is no. And I think that's why something like this is so important for us, because we can't rely on the human-to-human contact.
He's back in the room. Cyprian, Cyprian Britt is the head of people experience and HR at Entain Group, managing 26,000 people, so it's not all people to look after. So Cyprian, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
I'll start with you. I have my slide. Oh, thank you. Oh, perfect. Apologies for the delay. This is what happens when work comes in the forefront of play. So, this is together. Perfect. So, Cyprian, I've recently joined Entain just about 6 months ago. Organization that employs 27,000 people globally. Part of the work that I do there covers HR transformation, so that's top-down change for the organization. What is the future operating model for the organization? How can HR as a function respond to some of those needs? And then how do we organize ourselves with our technology and with our people to be able to deliver that? And then the bottom-up approach of people experience, where we're looking at the needs, wants, pain points, the desires of our people as a growing organization, significantly growing through M&As as well. So that bottom-up approach of how do we mature and we look after our people and we create that environment that drives consistency, but also improvement into being one of the best workplaces in the world. I'm completely out of sync today. Apologies for that again. So I thought that I'll start a little bit with, this is normally different sensations we have on a Friday. We're either manically trying to catch up and close for the week to make sure we're having a relaxed weekend where we forget about work. We're either on our sofas, slowing down and taking like slow down Fridays if any organization is doing that, or we're in that monkey place where we're thinking about, oh my God, I can't believe it's Friday. I have so many things to do. Should I leave these things for next week or not? I think we're somewhere in between, just looking at the room. I've experienced most of these things today as well, just going through a finance meeting that just finished now to get some project approvals, but also being part of the session today and making sure that everything is prepared. Now, I've mentioned that I run people experience and HR transformation for Entain. On the back of that, and so that's my day job, outside of my day job, I do a lot of speaking engagements and talk at podcasts or run my own podcast. Been nominated as, well, voted as one of the HR most influential practitioners of 2022 by HR Magazine. But in the back of that, I volunteer a lot of my time to get the profession into a good shape of how are we looking at the future of work, and how are we making sure that HR is in a good place to be able to respond to some of those trends, to shape ourselves into a good position, but also how do we bring a more people experience element into HR. So I thought I'll take you on a bit of a journey today of a bit of, you've heard this morning on what is employee experience in different perspectives and different stories. I'll talk you through why it's important for different organizations to focus on people experience or employee experience. And then I'll share a bit more of how I do it in my world. Don't imagine that joining Entain 6 months ago, now everything is sorted. We're just starting on our journey to focus on the employee experience. The organization has never had a dedicated people experience function until I joined. So there's a bit of uplift of that lost journey that we're going to go on to understand how we drive significant transformation when it comes to our people. Now, if we look at how do we define employee experience, and this is one of the definitions that I love the most, is that the totality of perceptions that people are having around their workplace, whether it's the way they interact with their receptionist as they're coming into the work, whether it's the way that they log in and they interact with the technology as they're joining meetings or being part of the same interactions, whether it's their experience of how do they reflect the culture in their day-to-day lives. Now, that's different than employee engagement or some of those metrics. We're looking at engagement where we're looking potentially once a year, hopefully not in most of our organizations. We're pulling some stats and we're saying this is the engagement stats across the organization. Employee experience is the everyday interactions. I can have an experience in the morning interacting with HR, have a different experience in the afternoon interacting with my line manager. I can have a completely different experience in the evening if I get a text message from one of the business leaders asking me to do work over the weekend or anything else. So that experience can have different ways of how we interact with the organization, but it also is not limited to the boundaries of the organization. It lives in and outside of work. We're bringing all of our work back into the organization, and we're taking a lot of the organization and the experience we're having in the organization outside into our daily lives. Now, there's a really good example of how different organizations are looking at employee experience, and this is different elements. So it's looking at that physical environment where work happens, whether it's home, in the office, in a WeWork environment where you're sharing with other companies or anything else. It looks at that technical environment. So this has obviously elevated its importance across the past few years, where we're looking at all of the tools and technologies that enable us to do work, to collaborate, to join together. And then the last thing, or maybe the first thing actually, is that culture and engagement. Is the way we're doing things here and how I feel about the way we're doing things here. And it's a really interesting thing that I think Ben would have covered and would have loved as well, with who owns employee experience in your organization. Because it sometimes feels like a department, an isolated department in HR that just runs it for the business and then rolls it out just as another HR initiative. But it's actually, employee experience needs to be initiated by the CEO. And it's in connection with what is the culture that we're trying to create in the organization. It's owned by the people team. So how we're creating the environment and we're creating the frameworks to be able to deliver that. It's supported by technology and workplace teams. So what is the technology environment and the physical environment that we're delivering for our people? And then it's driven by line managers. There's some recent research report that I need to just go through and validate some of those numbers that say that up to 70% of how people feel at work is dependent on their line manager. Why would people experience be solely an HR initiative if it's 70% dependent on something that we don't have control over? And the last but not least is championed by everyone. As a colleague, I'm responsible of the experience that people are having interacting with me. As a line manager, I'm responsible for the experience that people are getting interacting with me. Now, why it's important, there's some stats here, and I'm going to whiz through some of them. There's a story to be said here, and feel free to take pictures of this and bring them back into your organization of why we need to elevate the importance of employee experience within the organization. There's some stats saying, and I've quoted them on the bottom of the slides, with 71% of organizations rank employee engagement as very important to achieve organizational success. But then only 24% of them say that the organizations are highly engaged. Now, engagement is one of the outcomes of the experience you're trying to deliver. And one of the things that I position when I talk about the employee experience is that every organization has it. Some of it have it accidental, so it just happens, very organic. It's depending on a lot of factors. We don't have any type of control of it. Or it's really organized, designed, and intentional. So we're looking at what is the intentionality of what we're trying to deliver as part of employee experience. Now, here are some more insights of why it's important. So Jacob Morgan says that EX leaders have 40% less employee turnover than their competitors. We're going into a market where it's going to become significantly more important and attracting great talent. We're going into a market that's going to go through a bit of uncertainty with economies. Therefore, we need to be on the top of our game as organizations. You're seeing Josh Bersin's latest research reports highlight companies leveraging the right people experience strategy are 5 times more likely to create a sense of belonging at work, which means you're retaining the type of people that you want within your organization. Now, I'm going to take you through how I'm doing it within my work. And this is a methodology that I've worked in consulting. I've refined it through there. I've worked in different type of organizations and projects. I'm part of different networks that just allow me to recalibrate some of this methodology and bring it to market. I've applied it in different organizations. So I'm looking into complete refinement. So don't take this as the final product. I think if we're meeting a year from now, it's going to look slightly different and it's going to evolve. So it's an evolving type of framework. I'm looking at, and also when I'm hiring people in my team, these are some of the things I'm looking at as well. So I'm looking at agility. In people experience, it's very important for us to think on our feet, to bring an agile methodology of prototyping, testing, iterating as part of the work that we're doing. We're creating prototypes into small, controlled environments to be able to measure, is this right for the organization? Does this work? Can we validate it with the end users of what it means? Does it improve anything? Or is it just some of the fads that we might be getting on top of our game? We're looking at ethnographic methods, and this is like deep dive research. We're going into stepping into the shoes of our people, walking through what's happening in their day-to-day lives. In my organization, because we have a significant contingent in retail, I go into retail shops and I spend time with employees there to understand how do they access HR services? What's it like to be an employee within our organization? How do they interact with clients and customers? Is it a good work environment? Is it a stressful work environment? What are some of their needs and wants? What's going on through their heads as they are within the workplace and working through that? So that gives us a different type of reality rather than the one you would get on an engagement survey. We're looking at human-centered design, and human-centered design is something that brings to forefront different type of research methodologies. We're going to go out and gather significant data before we even start thinking about what is it that we're trying to solve. So we're looking at spectrum and contextualizing some of the insights that we're getting. We're bringing them back into the problem. And I have another slide on taking you through that, a bit more of a visual. But it allows us to step into the shoes and empathize with our end users and improve their experience bottom up. It brings system thinking, and nothing that we do in people experience is isolated. Everything is connected. It's how do we connect some of those things that we're trying to drive? So one question that I'm asking myself is, we're 27,000 people now in 28 markets across the world. As I'm deploying some people experience initiatives that might take a year in the making to be able to mature and measure results, will we be 27? Will we be 57,000 as an organization? Will we still be in the same market? So how can I bring some of that system thinking of where do we have the knowledge in the organization? How can we think differently about some of the interdependency of the initiatives that are happening within our world, but also outside in thinking, inside out thinking? What are some of the trends shaping and impacting our organization? And last but not least, this is the elements of people experience and employee experience borrow a lot of skills and a lot of capability from customer experience. So the journey map, the prototyping, the personas work, all are borrowed from customer experience. They just have a different twist to them. Now, if I deep dive a little bit in that, is the way I look at people experience as a whole is I'm looking at the hire to retire life cycle and how all of those touch points across the hire to retire life cycle drive intentionality on the experience we're trying to create. Is it belonging that we're trying to create? Is it advocacy that we're trying to create? What are some of those things that are culturally innate with the organization that we're trying to create, to drive? And what are some of those opportunities across the hire to retire life cycle and in the day of our employees where we can drive some of those? Now, this is a simple map of the hire to retire life cycle where we're looking at different areas. What we normally do in my work is we're designing some of those principles, guiding us through what is it that we're trying to create, and then we're deep diving in each of those segments. So in my organization at the moment, I'm looking at onboarding for all types of onboarding, whether you're new to the organization, you're returning from a period of absence, an extended period of absence, or you're coming onboarding into a new country at the back of either mergers and acquisitions or on the back of global mobility. And then I'm looking at priority area moves and transfers. This has been a bit of a pain point for the organization, and we've prioritized it on the back of that. Now, all of the experience projects that I've delivered so far, onboarding has been consistently one of the priority areas. It's something that not a lot of organizations are getting it right the way they want to. So people are landing in the organization, having different expectations of what the organization, the working environment, working with colleagues, line managers might feel differently. It's also one of the elements that for the past few years, we've onboarded people either in a hybrid or remote environment. And our cultures as organizations have not translated in that virtual environment. What does it mean? How do I sit next to my colleagues to understand who are the important stakeholders that I need to talk to? How do I print or do things in this organization or get through some of those boundaries? Is those elements in the culture that are not easily translated into the virtual environment. So I'm working on those two different elements. And as we're going through that and we're understanding some of the pain points and some of the sort of fires in the organization that we need to pull out, then we're prioritizing other areas that we're going through. And I've mentioned a bit of the human-centric approach that we're taking to this, and I've mentioned those hexagons. Hexagons? I think it's... Thank you. It's words in Romanian came in my head. So the diamonds where we're looking at gathering the data and understanding what's out there. How can we expand our understanding of the data that we're gathering? Are we gathering sentiment analysis? Are we getting insights on the demographics or the needs, wants, pain points of our people? Can we pull that into what are the type of insights that we're looking into and what are these insights telling us about the organization? Do we have the problem right to begin with? Is our problem onboarding? You sometimes get line managers saying, oh, we have 30% of people leaving the organization within a year. And that's a retention problem, but it's experience. When you're looking at experience, it's not a retention problem. It's how do we create the right experiences for people to make sure that we're even hiring the right people to begin with? How do we make sure that we're creating that onboarding experience that actually creates a clear understanding of what people should be delivering? What's the work environment here? How can people perform? Do they see themselves as a career having with this organization? So those are the type of problem statements that we're creating on the back of that. And then we're going into exploring and prototyping. We're looking at what are other organizations doing in this environment? How can we become better? What are the type of things that we're doing at the moment that might not be landing right? What are the type of things that we might be doing in pocket? So there's this line manager that does things differently. Why do we see results differently from this line manager versus 95% of the rest of the organization? And we're starting to explore those and start to prototype and interrogate. Is this type of solution giving us the right results? Is this something that we need to embed within our updated journeys and that experience journey? Is this something that works globally or works locally? How do we balance some of those needs? So we're refining and ideating ideas. Now, I've mentioned system thinking, and system thinking was thinking like top-down of, do we understand the needs of societies, how they might be changing, and how some of those external trends are impacting the organization? Do we understand the pressure being put on some of our organization from external trends? Whether you're UK or global, you have significant pressures as an organization when you're looking at that. Looking into the organization, are we designing for the type of organization that we're at? Normally, yes, for the type that we are today. Unlikely that we are designing for the organization we want to become into the future. Then we're designing for the team and team members. Do we enable line managers, individuals in the team to create the right type of experience that we're trying to create? And then last but not least, in the center of things is, are we designing for individuals working in this organization and the type of individuals we are trying to attract and retain? Now, one of the things that I've brought into my work, and honestly, when we started this work, it was just like alien to the organization. It had little buy-in, did not necessarily land the way I wanted it did. So one of the things I've changed as part of the prototyping and refining this approach is co-designing it with stakeholders. So I brought business stakeholders in some of the design sessions, business stakeholders in iterating and talking about what is the actual problem that we're trying to solve when it comes to experience. And their buy-in, being in those sessions and being able to pinpoint some of those challenges and being able to pinpoint some of those solutions, gathered that ambassadorship across the organization, but also ownership. Because remember, HR is not solely responsible for people experience. These are key stakeholders that you need in the room. And this is something I've borrowed from CAPD, is whenever we're looking at people experience, it's sometimes just inwards rather than actually how do we bring evidence-based as part of our people experience. So we're looking at external data. It's nice to look at Airbnb and what they are doing with work from anywhere type of policies and the changes that they're making. Does it apply into the context of our work? What are other organizations doing? What is literature and science departments are telling us about what that might look like in the context of our business? Can we get some legal advice around what that might look like for the type of business that we're in? And we're bringing it into the context of our business, and we're looking at SMEs within the business. Is this a type of business that we want to become, where we're offering the possibility for anyone to work from anywhere? And in our policy, as Airbnb did, we even promote some of those. So if you read the Airbnb policy on working from anywhere, they say, go and work to Barbados for up to 5 years. They offer you this visa. This is a link where you apply for the visa within their internal policy, which is very unusual for internal policy that's normally focused around protecting the organization rather than promoting opportunities. And then last but not least, we get this 4-step human-centered design approach where we're looking at, this pointer, perfect. We're looking at that discovery. So what are the type of challenges that we're facing in an organization? How can we contextualize that into our business? Global, is it local, anything else? We're creating different type of solutions and testing and thinking about the strategy as part of that. And then we're refining the type of iterations that we're delivering within the organization, and we're testing those. And I have a few examples here from my previous work. Don't quote me on any of these. I've tried to remove all of the logos from them to make sure that they are anonymized enough. So on the back of the work that we're doing in people experience, we're creating behavioral personas. And these are the type of personas that are focused on the needs, wants, pain points, desires, expectations from people within the workplace, rather than the types of personas you would find in customer experience, which are demographics that will say your average buyer is chip 35, loves Apple, and has this much budget to spend on technology. So it looks at the type of pain points and how I, as an individual, interact with technology, how I, as an individual in the organization, prefer to work with HR, for example. Do I prefer to drop them an email, open a chat, pick up the phone? What are the type of things and behaviors that I need within my working environment? I need the flexibility to be able to go and speak at conferences while still picking up calls with finance on the back end of that. As we're going and we're deep diving in each of those segments of the journeys, we're looking at all of the touch points that people are having. with HR, with the line manager, with individuals. And we're mapping, and these are like literally smiley faces or sad faces as part of that. So we're creating a visual representation of like almost like heat zones of what are the type of positive experience we're creating for different segments of employees or personas within our organization, and what are some of those angry faces, sad faces that we're creating. You see significant red in here for specific segments, but we're pulling out of there specific insight that is actually very good to a very powerful visual to bring it into conversations with business leaders. We're also, to back that up and not have it just like a normal visual, we back that up with significant research report. So we're writing, these are the trends we've identified. Our technology is not supporting us to deliver what we want. Our systems are too complex. I think one of my favorite is we have enablement as one of our values as in a lot of organizations. But when you're going through the approval cycles, you have to go through 5 approval cycles to get anything done. So there's the misbalance between that you need to highlight as part of that research report. Then as we're going through some of these experiences, we're looking at also on what are the type of things that matter to people most. Is it having the flexibility to work from anywhere? Is it the flexibility of adjusting my hours? Is it the flexibility of looking after my family as I'm still working? Is it working from home? Is it the food and the catering and sweets and the fruits that we might be getting at the basket in the morning? What are the type of elements that make a difference into people's experience and life? And we're mapping out those as key moments that matter, which are opportunity areas that if you drive improvement just in those areas, it could literally improve your overall scores by up to 65%. So if you have 5 or 10 moments that matter rather than 120 touch points, and you're only focusing on those, you're significantly improving the experience of your people within the organization. It's just, those are the elements that matter the most to individuals. And then on the back of that, we're designing aspirational journeys. So we're looking at, and you see here a bit of a flux of, this is like the minus, this is the plus. We're designing aspirational journeys. And we're looking at, if I want Joe to join the organization tomorrow and take them through onboarding, what are the step-by-step steps that he will have to go? It's going to go through the workplace. We're going to wait for his right to work verification, passport, or anything else. He's going to sit at a desk. We have his laptop ready. So all of these different steps that we can design and be very intentional around how we're creating the right environment for them. It gives us opportunities of understanding where are we currently failing and what are the type of things that we need to improve. Things like in onboarding, do managers have a guidance or a playbook on how onboarding should be unfolded? Do we use nudges and systems and technologies? It's enabled by technology with nudges and systems to be able to prompt people, to remind them with, hey, Joe is joining tomorrow. Maybe you should book a coffee with him, because that is something that we found that actually resonates with individuals joining the organization. Hey, team members, Joe is joining next week. Let's write a card for him. Here's a virtual card for type of things. And these are the opportunities for you to innovate within the organization and bring the type of things that make most of a difference. And then there's a suite of other resources that you can create on the back of employee experience. In some cases, when we're going into problem statement, we're saying our org design is wrong and our service delivery model is wrong. Take, for example, global mobility. We have global mobility COE that does everything from contracts, papers, interactions, calls, and everything else, all the way through proposition, while a COE should only focus on proposition and policy. So we're bringing them back to say, actually, we need to shift the dial on how this is working. Sometimes we fix processes, and you've had the conversation earlier about sort of process redesign using people experience. Sometimes we look at, we have the right technology to enable us to deliver this. Can people experience design give us the right indication of what is the technology that we need, and how can we either configure or customize that technology to respond to our business needs? So it's like a million different ways of using all of these different insights into how you add value to the business and how those solutions will land within the organization. And here are just a few of them of how do we actually future-proof some of this design, because you're not just designing for your organization today, you're designing for how your organization will evolve into the future. So it's developed with the support and ownership of the business and SMEs. And once you complete some of these designs, is actually you're almost like handing ownership and the drive and the energy of some of those experiences back into the business. You're asking business stakeholders to have ownership and accountability of how they drive that change. Looks at the changing nature of work and workplace, both by bringing some of those insights in. So we're looking at what are the type of things that are important to new generations coming in? What are the type of things that are important within a workplace from different countries that we might be absorbing through M&A? So we're future-proofing some of our model, looking at some of those trends and bringing them into experience design. Takes into account changing needs, wants, and expectations of our people. And God knows we've seen a lot of those expectations change just during COVID and the past few years. People work, how people interact with the nature of work and your environment. Now we started asking people to come back into the office 5 days a week. It's not going to work for most people that were able to deliver that work remotely for the past 2.5 years, 3 years now. So what is that type of balance and changing expectations of our people? Influenced by external trends and shaping markets. So you're looking at horizon scanning, and when you're doing that evidence-based practice and you're bringing all of those insights, you're looking at not just the best-in-class type of organization, you're looking at what is the evidence that best-in-class might apply into the context of my business, because each business is unique in that regard. Bring solid understanding of experience via evidence-based practice, mentioned that, drives agility in approach and not just continuous improvement. So you're not designing experiences just one-off. You're constantly prototyping and changing the way that you're doing. So we're going to launch an updated onboarding experience in a month's time for the global organization with localizations of what that might look like. We're also embedding on the back of that significant metrics and analysis and listening mechanisms to allow us to, at any point in time, look through that data and improve different steps as part of that experience. Supports transition from engagement metric into continuous listening and dialogue. And this has been a bit of the experience that I've had with different organizations where we count a little bit too much on some of those engagement metrics and that survey that we run once a year, instead of actually what is the narrative of the organization? Have things changed in the past 3 months? Have we acted on some of those engagement metrics? And how do we drive consistent improvements into the future? And last but not least, allows for that clear prioritization of work. On the back of some of the engagement surveys, you might have 3, 6, 9 months until you're actually responding to some of those needs. On the back of employee experience and continuous listening mechanisms, you're responding in the moment. You're able to identify day by day some of the things that are not landing well and how you can go back and prototype and change and improve them. Now, that has been a quick whiz tour of half an hour of people experience. I can obviously talk about this for days and would love to if I've given the opportunity again to do some more deep dives into employee experience and actually take people through each of those different segments and learn how to do personas together and everything else. I think it's a great opportunity for me just to pause here because I've thrown a lot of information at you just before lunch and ask if you have any questions. And I know I have a question there around M&A that I'm going to pick up later. Yes, please. Yep. And I think when you're looking at diversity as a whole, and not just neurodiversity, there's elements that you need to customize the experience to some of those needs. And how do you actually balance the organization to respond almost like in an equitable way to individuals across that you're bringing in. So there's, I'm trying to remember the name of the tool. We use a specific tool that allows us to understand how do we create scenarios for different type of personas. I'll remember it in a second. So whenever we're doing a design of an experience, we take it through significant validation. So we go back to the end user and we test it, we do some focus groups, we do some listening sessions, we take people through the actual refined journey to understand if it's creating a difference, if it's driving any friction, anything else. We take that back into the diversity and inclusion steering group and we look at, can we validate that this makes sense for every type of protected characteristic in the UK or any type of sort of diversity element across the globe as we're going through that, to make sure that we haven't just created something in a silo with stakeholders that have been in the business that are all middle-aged, privileged men, but we're actually throwing our net into how do we create we use experience to create a more equitable environment. I will remember the tool, but what it does is basically has some wildcards. So you're pressing a button, you see a wildcard that says, Joe, who is neurodiverse and has ADHD, these are some of the things that are important to him. And this is the challenge that you're throwing. Therefore, you're looking and prototyping some of those scenarios through the experience that you designed to make sure that you're actually solving for diversity as a whole. Yes, yes. And whenever we're using personas, we're looking at what's the proportion of people that we're bringing in that is statistically resonant to the type of segment that we're looking at. So I'm never using like 10 people to create a persona. I'm always using about 2,000 to create a persona for large organizations. For small organizations, I look at about 370 if I do like 8 personas. So it's 380 per persona to be able to be represented in there. Yep. So it works both ways. I've done sort of fragmented approaches into designing one stage of the experience, but I also done like a full suite of the hire to retire life cycle and how different stakeholders are involved in that, whether it's line managers, business leaders, workplace design, technology. It's part of that. No worries. I think there was another question. Oh, there.
That was really great. That I work in the startup, and I think that's a really interesting process that I have tried. A pain point that I found with it was where the stakeholders wanted to take so much ownership of the process then that in order for you to successfully design the process for the business, serve all the departments, it was kind of like this, working out where the level of bespokeness could be for each individual department. So I was just thinking, like, how did you make sure there's that parity and
yeah, and it's bringing them together to work together rather than bringing them together for each of their individual needs. So I'm setting up some ground rules of we're only going to do localization of a maximum of 20% in our design, and that localization will be prioritized based on these type of principles, where there predominantly is like requirements of the market, and if we have significant complexity in our business model. And we've grown through merger and acquisition, so we have significant complexity. But I'm bringing in with, are we exceeding that 20% of customization and localization? If yes, what is it, some of the other things that we can give up and bring as globally consistent? Now, another thing that I do with these people is I call them co-designers. So I bring them in, I call them co-designers, I give them job description, I'm saying, this is your responsibility. Your responsibility is to sound check some of these things, take ownership of the delivery and everything else. If they want to run with it, I let them run with it, as long as they understand that they are accountable to the group to come back and present some of those ideas. If they are running the hills and they're doing all of the process design and everything else, I want them to come back and validate that with the group. That saves me the work, because I actually feel much more comfortable someone who's in the business, doing the business processes, rather than me having to pull it out. But it also takes ownership across them to bring it back into the business. But they have accountability to the co-designers group.
about the relationship between design and sustainability and experience design?
Oof. So I've used experience design when we've implemented new technology in the organization. So I've used it as part of the initiation of the change journey, but also the initiation of how much of the technology we're going to customize and configure. So this is the experience that we're trying to deliver. Brought that into global design workshops for technology requirements, created process maps on the back of that, and then on each of the personas that we've created as part of the experience, we've then changed impact assessment and implications. So that has driven like the whole journey of how we're going to take people on a journey with us as part of their experience and improve their experience, rather than them being almost like change them to them, so with them. So I think there's like, I think a lot of different applications of using experience design into change, into technology implementations, into process reengineering, into organizational culture, into learning and development, you name it. I think throw something at me and I will think about how we're going to bring experience design into that element. No worries. Yes.
And everything is a pain point area.
Yes.
So how do you put okay, this is my step one that I need to strategize this, because most of the time we are all independent.
Yep. So I hate it when people ask me, what are some of the quick wins around this? And I'm like, experience design is the quick win. This whole thing is the quick win because it changes your mentality of actually focusing on input into focusing on impact and output. So you're looking at how do we actually impact positively the experience that we're providing to our people in our organization. So I do a bit of assessment and I interview key stakeholders, predominantly outside of HR, hopefully, that actually give me an indication of what's happening in the business and what's a pain point for them rather than a pain point for HR. And I've been sitting in HR team, so I've never had an experience role that sits outside of HR topic. Funny enough, I know there are a few out there in the market, and I'm really interested to find out how they approach this. But I look at business stakeholders. What are some of those key pain points that you're experiencing? And I have like digital coming in and saying, oh, the experience that we have onboarding people in this country are completely different than this country. Because we're moving more into an environment where we have line managers having direct reports in different countries. It's creating a significant friction. Like line managers don't know what they need to apply in UK versus Italy versus Australia versus everything is different, and it's like creating guidebooks and throwing 5 guidebooks at them just to do onboarding for 5 people. It's like, okay, so that is a pain point. And we're asking, okay, if you had all of these 10 pain points, which were the ones that will drive significant improvement if we will tackle them today? So obviously, we're looking at the hire to retire life cycle, and I know as I'm doing onboarding, I'm picking a lot of things that need to be solved in recruitment. I'm picking a lot of things that need to be solved in the hire to retire life cycle, and gives me more understanding. But I'm already committed with business leaders that they want onboarding sorted, and it's them that I respond to rather than the HR leaders. Maurice? Should we pick that up? My next question, or? Just shout. Yep. So I worked in consulting. So I joined consulting for the joy of traveling the world, being from business to business, seeing US, and doing this as a gig because I love traveling. Joined consulting in a time of the pandemic, which meant that I haven't even seen the office for the first year and a half of being employed in that organization. And most of the experience worked has been remotely. So we've looked at tools like Miro or Mural that create some of those dashboards and like post-its on the wall and everything else as part of that work. We've looked at almost like all of the type of tools and technology that can augment to the best of its ability anything that you would do in a face-to-face environment. So having sort of journey maps on the board with post-its that you're going to move around and go through that. We've obviously had to, if I were in a face-to-face event, I wouldn't need as many facilitators as I would in a virtual environment. And the facilitators need to be very well trained and on point to be able to bring those breakout rooms back on track with some of the conversations that we're doing, know how to park some of those conversations that are happening in the background of politics or any other type of priorities and bring them back into the forefront. And we've used a suite of other type of technologies. So we've used Figma, we've used like just tools that can augment anything that you would do face-to-face. What we had to do as an additional step to that, and that is really important, is bring the outputs back to the people because they see the work as it's happening and they might forget some of the things that they've been talking about. So it's good just to bring them up to say, this is what we talked about last night. We've moved all of these different post-its and we've created a new journey. Is this what we mean by it? And they say, yes, perfect. Or no, actually we misrepresented that point. Let's refine it and bring it back on board. But it's not impossible. It is challenging, but I think it's part of the joy of us going through COVID is learning how to work more digitally. It is not impossible. Perfect. You said you had a second question? Oh, different cultures. You get different levels of participation in different cultures. And you get sort of, I tend in some of these workshops to remove reporting lines. So if I have the CPO in a room, everyone will just agree. There's no challenge. There's nothing. Everyone just agrees, or the CEO. Like, none of that. I want the CPO just to review some of the findings, not to be in any of the workshops. So I'm removing all of the reporting lines. What I might also do is mix groups around. And the way I'm training the facilitators to run some those interactions is to pinpoint people that they can pull some of their expertise. So at some point, I'm asking the facilitators to touch base with each of the individual attendees to understand what is that they bring their unique angle to the workshop and how they will contribute. I have India, Philippines, UK, Australia, US into the same workshop. I will get different levels of participation and challenge from all of them. So if you look at India as a culture, like very much in agreement rather than challenge with some of those. So I'm throwing different challenges at them to say, how would you solve some of the things? If you were to take away some of the actions from the group, how would you challenge it? What I do to almost calibrate for that as well is I send pre-reads in advance. So different people from different cultures require a bit of prep coming into a workshop to challenge some of the ideas. So I'm giving them a heads up of these are some of the things that you should be expecting. And this is how we're going to run the workshop with. This is the part where I inform you. This is the part where you're collaborating. This is the part where I expect challenge from you. So I'm making it very explicit. Cool. Any other questions? Or I think we're out of time and someone might want to shoot me, but I think there's a bit of left. And if you want to ask me anything personally, more than happy to answer that. Do you want me to answer your M&A question, Jay?
Yes, please.
Do you want to ask the M&A question? So I think Jay asked me an M&A question a while ago. Do you want to ask it into the microphone? Yep.
Where do you think could be the employee experience to grow during that stage? Because it's very kind of NGA, very protected, not much of involvement, or just the very selected tools from the vendors, and that is the HR.
Yep.
What would be the
So I don't bring experience design into the deal signature type of approvals as part of that. I embed some of the experience design as the M&A lead will do a bit of discovery with the company that we've just acquired. So part of that journey is I'm almost like getting a bit of a red, amber, green type of scenario of how good or bad it is or how different it is than our rest of our culture. I'm also going through like the contract to understand, have we promised the world to them as individuals, or have we just said you're going to be part of this group, it's going to be so exciting and everything else, but we haven't told you anything about what the experience is going to be. And then I'm deploying specific diagnosis to understand what is the capability that is currently delivering HR and people experience within that organization. How is that different than what we have in our mother company? Would it be, and I'm doing like prototypes of their journey going through mergers and acquisitions. So we have like a framework or blueprint of like the transactional things that will go. When will they get access to global people services? When will they get access to our global ER, people services, business partnering, and all of the tools that we're going to move them in? Those are the tactical ones. What I look at from the end user is, how is this going to feel as an individual? When we turn on, I don't know, ServiceNow to them, it's going to look completely different. Are we upgrading or downgrading part of their experience? Can we take them on a journey with us? So I'm prototyping all of that journey that they'll take emotionally through the M&A as individuals based on what the experience that they're currently having versus the experience that we're going to offer them. And I'm using that as a transition roadmap. Cool. We'll do some more talks on that. Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I think back over to you.
Thank you very much, Supreme. Thanks to all speakers today. Actually, today was really very valuable day for everybody. Actually, we shared very interesting experiences with each other. So, as a last word, because lunch is ready and we will chat with each other, we will test the delicious things here. But before that, I would like to talk about the Sorwe a little bit. Sorwe is only holistic employee experience platform at the moment, and we are designing this experience actually simplifying your job in 10 different companies, in 10 different cultures, and maybe 1,000 organizations at the moment. So we are growing entire journey for employees actually from morning till to exit, and we have 4 main modules in each other to draw this entire journey. The first one is internal communication. In the employee experience design, the internal communication is very important. We are making more enjoyable, more fun, more smooth, different type of communication, very personalized communication for the companies. The second one is feedback. We are measuring every kind of interaction automatically and turning into some insights for the leaders, for line managers, and for top managers in the company. The third one is learning experience. We are offering full of LMS in the system, made 1,000 different kind of ready-to-use training videos to improve this learning experience in the system. The last one, actually, we align all these modules to performance. So we are collecting 1,000 information data because of every interaction. So when you reflect these results, this index to the performance, you are really measuring real performance, real willingness in the company, and then you will manage the overall performance easier with this experiment. Actually, we are, maybe I can say that it is more simple explanation. We are turning the boring processes into experience from onboarding to exit. So thank you very much. Lunch is ready. We will chat with you.